Peace negotiations between the Taliban and the Afghan government were halted due to political disputes between officials who have yet to decide who will be included in those talks due to disagreements over the previous presidential election in the country. This as the Trump administration ramps up efforts to end the 18-year-long war in Afghanistan by making a historic peace deal with the Taliban. Joining us to discuss this further is Dan Perkins, a veteran and nationally recognized foreign policy expert, as well as the author of Brothers of the Nile, of the Red Nile, that is. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
There's a great deal of uncertainty regarding how that signed deal could pan out. However, the U.S. has already started withdrawing some troops, even as political tensions in the area have increased. How are disagreements between groups in the area impacting the progress toward peace?
That's a great question. We have a real challenge in dealing with this issue because we're dealing with insurgents within the country. Besides the Taliban, we have the Afghan government, but there are other groups, remnants of ISIS and other organizations, excuse me, that want a role at the table as far as discussions, and we basically want to try and get out. What we have to be concerned about is getting our troops out safely and as quickly as possible. And that's what the president and his team is trying to do. We want to get everybody out within 14 months, including the UN people who are there as providing security. But it's a difficult, when you're dealing with warring factions who hate each other, it's really difficult to get people to the table.
Absolutely. We know that that's been an obstacle, but the U.S. agreed to release 5,000 Taliban prisoners, yet the Afghan government stated that this was not up to the U.S. What role does the Afghan government play in all of this?
Ultimately, they're going to have to be there after we leave. And so it's going to be the Afghan government and the Taliban who are going to have to figure out how to live together if they want to. I mean, if you look at what's going on in that country, we're talking about a country that has, I'm originally from New Jersey, and I used to live in a town called Chatham. It's in Morris County. And the GDP of Morris County, New Jersey, is almost 3 times the size of the GDP of Afghanistan. So we're talking about a small country, a very, excuse me, very small economy, and yet 25% unemployment rate. So the poverty is just overwhelming, and the countries have been at war. You said 18 years, but remember the Russians were there long before we were there, and they left. The country is devastated, and so the hate and the anger between the fighting parties is decades, if not centuries old, and is going to take a lot of work just to get them to come to the table and be civil with each other.
Absolutely, and of course bringing some stability to that country. What other kinds of negotiations are being made between the U.S. and the Taliban in an effort to ensure a ceasefire?
One of the things that's important is the role of women's rights in Afghanistan. With the new government, women have been given an opportunity to take a more active process in the political process in their own independent life and education. And but that's one of the issues. That's one of the 5 major points of this accord, is the continuation of the expansion of the role of women in Afghanistan, which some of the hardliners on the other side want to roll it back to what it was before under Sharia law and the Quran. And so that's a very important thing to deal with. As you mentioned, the 5,000 prisoners, in a sense, they're right. The Afghan government should have the right to decide when they should be released and what kind of constraints are going to be put on them after they're released, because they obviously were terrorists, and they want to keep track of them because they want to try it. They really want to try. I believe both sides really want to try and figure out a way to bring peace to this region.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.